Hello, everybody. Welcome to Shaper Sessions. I'm Russ, and
I'm Sean.
we got Sean here today, and we've got a really great show for you. We've got a special guest, Caleb James, the star instructor of our latest masterclass. So we're going to bring Caleb on in just a minute. Before we get started, a couple of notes, as always, at the top of the show. This is live. We're going to do a live demo of Shaper Origin at the end of the show. After that, we're going to roll into Q&A. We do these with our live shows, so make sure if you're participating in the chat, drop those questions in the chat. Our fellow Ted in the chat is going to collect all those questions and send the ones that he can't answer to us at the end of the show, and we'll answer them live. We also do a giveaway, and we're giving away 2 really cool router bits today, right, Sean?
We are. We have a couple of special new bits that we want to show you and let a couple people take them home.
Okay, that's a little mysterious, but I promise you're going to love them. And, we're just so excited to have Caleb on. We've been working with him for how long, would you say, Sean?
It's a couple of years now. I think 2 to 3 years now. We've been going back and forth, and out popped this chair and a bunch of other magical things along the way. So, it's been a couple of years now.
All right. So, without further ado, let's bring in Caleb.
Hey guys.
Buddy. How's it going
Thanks for
over
having
there?
me. It's going great.
You want to
Sun's
introduce
shining,
yourself
so can't
for
complain.
The crowd?
Yeah, so my name's Caleb James. I'm a chair maker and a tool maker. I live here in Greenville, South Carolina. Got a wife and 2 daughters, and yeah, that's basically me.
Awesome. And we can see your sweet shop in the background. We'll do the shop tour classic half show break in a little bit. But basically, you're a chair maker, a furniture maker of all kinds. We've seen some really cool casework. A tool maker. We're going to talk about some of the tools that you've made today. And I'm curious, really, that's a wide breadth of skills. How'd you get started in all of that?
Oh man, so I had a business that was not woodworking, and like a lot of people, my hobby, my therapeutic time was in the shop, and I just really liked exploring woodworking. It was very therapeutic, and found that I was kind of halfway decent at making stuff. So just kind of kept rolling from there. One day decided I would sell out my business to my business partner, my brother, and just jump headfirst into doing furniture just to see where it would go. Really had no clue. But yeah, I've just made it this far since then. Had a little success.
That's awesome. And I think your work really speaks for itself. So we've got this chair here, obviously, but we also have some photos of chairs and of your work on Sean's computer over here. And we've got some tools, I think, right? You've got some tools over there live that you could show us as well.
Yeah.
So let's go.
Definitely.
Let's pull up these chairs. Ned, can we get Sean's laptop going here in just a minute? There we go. All right, so we've got this big lounge chair with the Danish cord pulled up here, top of that PDF that you sent us. Could you tell us a little bit about this one?
Yeah, so that one really kind of came out of my years of researching Danish lounge chairs, and that's actually made the weave on that is binder cane. But that's definitely rooted very much in the Danish modern lounge chair tradition, I guess you might say. And so that's just a high back version. They don't usually make too many of their lounge chairs high back, but that one has some nice head support. A little bit more of the Swedish line of things, but that's not too important of a detail. Yeah, but I had a client that's a really good example of a client who really gave me some freedom. They said, I want a lounge chair. And I said, well, I have a design that's on the books. If you'd be willing to let me bring something to the table that I think would be of great value, it allowed me to explore a design that I wanted to produce. I think you'd be happy with it. And it's one of my favorite pieces that I've made, and I think the client was happy with it. So, yeah, that one always feels good when I look back on it.
Mm-hmm. The next page is my favorite one out of all that you sent us. Let's pull that up on the laptop there. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
What's the history behind this guy?
So I had was exploring some chairs in this style. This is referred to sometimes as an elbow chair when you have a little bit of a backrest, but comes around, gives you enough length to support your elbow, not necessarily an armchair. and I had a architect client that I had made a fair bit of furniture for, and yeah, he wanted some chairs to go around a table where he would sit his clients to show them some of the plans and so forth. And we just kind of went back and forth, and this came out of it. It really, I think he first saw me because he saw that I liked Hans Wegner's work, and a lot of the stuff that I was doing was in that style. And so, if I remember correctly, he might have said something like, "Hey, I want something that really reflects that particular style," which was perfect for me. And yeah, that's what came out of it.
Awesome. And we've got some photos of some really cool casework too. I know you've got a really cool example sitting behind you, but before we get to that one, I do want to show off this floating console, which I think is absolutely sweet. And Sean, let's pull up the detail of those doors opened up, because there's a hidden detail in there that I'd love to talk about. So what's going on here?
Yeah, so this uses kind of an unusual opening method. Basically, if you imagine like a L shape, and there's two pins on the side of the door, and as one slides back, the other one moves up. So you can take the door from a vertical position and make it horizontal, and then it actually slides in. So you can pull it out and in just like this to open and close it. So it's a really, really simple mechanism. But it just requires a very accurate locating of those components to work properly. But yeah, I love making things that are really, really simple at their core, but kind of work ingeniously. So I didn't invent that mechanism there or that concept of opening the door, but it's fun to be able to implement it.
But you might have been the first one to cut something like that using Shaper Origin. Sean, you and I were talking about this before the show, about how you and Caleb started working on that in the early days.
Yeah, so this was a long time ago, and even another case that we should probably bring up, which you can probably see back behind Caleb. But I think this was the first project that Caleb really put Origin to use on, and maybe talk us through this one a little bit, Caleb.
Yeah, this is a dry bar cube or a dry bar. In the mid-century, there was, a number of varieties of this, but just basically it would hold your stuff, your whiskey and your red wine or things like that didn't need refrigeration. Maybe you would drink them neat. It might be in your living room or your den or something. So this one, you could just pop the top open, grab some contents out right there and have a little drink for you and a friend if you had a guest over. So this was made in that particular style. This is replicating one that was really, really popular. And so, yeah, that's what I've got here. Oh, and what I used Origin for was to make the side templates. Because as you see, these parts need to nest together very, very accurately and all aligned. So I used that to cut the templates out. At that point, I was using just Adobe Illustrator, so I would drop my designs in Adobe, and then I was able to take and create the files and cut that out. Prior to that, I was just printing them out on my large format printer, and then hoping that the tolerances on the printer were still close enough that I could be accurate enough to kind of tweak the design by hand, the templates by hand rather, and still make it work. So yeah, wow. that was the point where I was kind of felt the shock of how accurate Origin was, and I was really glad that I had it in the shop because it saved me a lot of time messing with templates because they were close to perfect right off of the tool, which I wasn't used to.
Love that. And speaking about fine tuning things to fit, then you've got a whole line of tools, including spoke shaves, that I know you're really well known for. Could you tell us about those? I think you've got a couple examples in the shop over there.
Yeah, I've got a couple here. Yeah, these were almost kind of, I was making side escapement planes and so forth, which are your traditional hollows and rounds or your traditional wooden bench planes. I was making things like that. So I really didn't have any intent to make spoke shaves. But yeah, I made one, and then there was just a lot of popularity. So I just kept making them. So here's just two that I started with. This was the first one actually I started with, and I'm showing you the prototypes. I still use them. But yeah, I've produced probably close to about 500 of that spoke shave at this point, maybe the same amount for this one. This one is styled after a cigar shave, so it can cut into really nice tight curves. Spent a couple of years actually developing that one till I was really, really happy with the way it worked. And then here's a large spoke shave, extra large spoke shave, but most of the people who have bought it or use it or own it have come to call it the monster shave because it's just so huge. If you there's a little side by side comparison.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like the length of my forearm or something.
Yeah, that'll take
But
a shaving.
yeah, when I started making it, I said, well, I just wanted something kind of like a draw knife, but with the spoke shave ability to be able to control the cut a little more directly. So that was sort of my aim there, and I think maybe I got close to it.
I would say you got pretty close to it, buddy. I've used all three of them, and they're, you can never have enough tools, but they really do change the way you interact with the wood, and you can kind of work from big to small and save a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're more of a carving tool.
That's awesome. I watched these master classes, and the one thing I really came away with is, holy smokes, Caleb, you work wood fast with those tools. You really put them to work, and that monster spoke shave especially just removes material like nothing else.
I think you spend enough time doing. Sorry.
No, that's okay. Sorry, carry on.
Oh, I was just going to say, you spend enough years working with your hands, you learn to work fast because otherwise you won't get anything done. But it's also nice to have tools that can do it, so you're not wearing your body out. But anyhow,
totally. Well, and Caleb's a single woodworker in a shop, and producing all those by yourself must have been quite the task, huh?
Oh, making all the spoke shaves? Yeah. I mean, well, the irony is some people think I make every spoke shave by hand. I don't. I do have machining processes and things like that. But then again, all the wooden tools that people are usually fond of from the 1800s, mid 1800s on, those were all machine produced too. But yeah, you can't carry machines with you everywhere, but hand tools can go where those big machines can't go. So that's the advantage of them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I thought it was interesting some of the way that the tool making has influenced your furniture making and vice versa. Obviously, you make tools to fit the furniture, but one of the things we were talking about before the show is how tool making has influenced your furniture building. So let's show everybody that stool that we were talking about before. I think that's such a cool detail.
Yeah. I think it's a little bit subconscious, but like for example, this footrest here. A lot of people, when they see it, they say, well, that looks like your spoke shaves, and they're probably right. There was one of the well-known Danish modern makers, Hans Wegner. A lot of people thought like the handles and stuff on his chairs, the armrest, or maybe a particular component would look like maybe an axe handle or like a paddle, more tool-oriented. So I think there may be some subconscious, inserting of those design elements into objects that you're touching, right? I mean, like the axe handle is very organic. We're holding it. And then the armrest on a chair, well, we're interacting with it. We're touching it. So in a sense, it's sort of a tool for us. So I think maybe it's not too surprising. Some of those things cross over.
Mm-hmm. And that brings us to this masterclass, which has a lot in there about your philosophy personally on chair design, which is very influenced by that Danish modern school.
Yeah, chair designs. I mean, when I think about chair designs, I want something that I want to interact with. And so, I think some of the modern concepts that are more popular now, we want things to be local. So, we're using materials that are close by. So I don't usually use exotics in my furniture. It's probably like white oak or ash or walnut, things that I can get nearby. And then it's got natural finishes on it. I like using things like linseed oil or a soap finish. Those are all common in Danish furniture. So just even before I get into the design, the aesthetic designs of them, I liked those elements of that movement. So that automatically fits in with my design thinking. Yeah, I don't know if you had anything specific along those lines you mean to touch on, but those were some of the things that really drew me to it. Very organic, and you can connect with it.
Yeah, well, we've got your masterclass pulled up over here. For anyone who's new to Shaper Sessions and the Shaper community, can take a step back here. We've been putting out these masterclasses for the last, year or so, and we're going to continue to do more. Sean's got pulled up on his laptop over here our homepage for these, and it's shapertools.com/masterclass. For Caleb's masterclass specifically, it's shapertools.com/Caleb James masterclass with hyphens. But you can see some of the masterclasses that we've got on here. These are all, I'd say, between an hour or two, each of incredible information. So we've got Caleb, of course, Christoph Noy, who's a guitar maker, Roland Johnson, who is huge in hand tool working, restoring hand planes, and working that in that style. Matt Kenny, a box maker, and Johanna Roy, who is a really expert marquetry and inlay craftsperson. And each of these folks goes and just shares, an absolute wealth of information on the topic that they specialize in. So let's click into Caleb's here. And, I want everybody to go and watch this, because we on this show can't dive into anywhere close to the level of detail that we go into in this masterclass. But the 4 sections that we focus on are chair design, which we kind of just talked about, card scraper techniques, which is Caleb's method for sharpening a card scraper better than anyone I've ever seen, hand shaping, and making templates with Origin. So, for example, Caleb, I know you've got kind of a hand shaping prop set up over there, something that we talk about in the video. We'd love to see that.
Yeah. So just to kind of give us an idea of what you'd find in the class is basically a lot of chair components are often round. Maybe they take a shape that's flowing or curved. And that can be kind of complex to figure out how to shape it. So I use the example of the back leg of a wishbone chair, and we start from just like the the square shape here, the square tapered component, which I think most of us could figure out how to get to, and then take it to this round, nice round tapered part. As you can see, it looks nice and organic. It looks like a much different part than what we started with here. And I'm just showing you how to use hand tools to get to that end part. In a stepped way, a process that's logical and that you can repeat over and over again, because sometimes people think when you carve something, you're just going at it until you have the shape that you want. And like, oh, that's, I stopped there. But there is actually a logical order to achieving that repeatably and to be able to apply it to, a lot of different things that you might want to make. So hopefully that's what I convey. Yeah,
I think so. And the first step to that, kind of getting that S-shaped part out of a rectangular block, is templates. The last part of this masterclass is making templates with Shaper Origin, which we kind of talked about with that dry bar box that you showed us. I don't want to spill the beans too much on that, because we've got a really good template making demo at the end of the show. So everybody hang on for that. But related to shaping, we have 2 other ShaperHub projects from you that we'd love to pull up and show everybody. And these are both used in that shaping masterclass segment. So let's talk about those a little bit. The first one here is the spar gauge.
Yeah, so this is Caleb's ShaperHub profile, which has all the projects he's published on ShaperHub, and you can kind of click a project to get the files, send them directly to Origin with one click, so you can cut them out, and then see details about how to create the project. So this, actually, maybe you want to show it in real time over here, Russ. We have a version we've cut out over here, and basically the idea here is kind of like a center finding gauge, where you would have a reference on both sides of the piece with a pin in the middle. This has 2 lines, and that creates both sides. If you look on this image here, where it kind of guides you through where you need to remove the material to without removing too much. So this spar gauge is available on ShaperHub. It's a super easy project to cut out, and I even modified one at home for a center finding gauge that works pretty well. This is one of the projects, the spar gauge, which is a nice, easy, short project. And then I don't know if you've seen in Caleb's background, but he has a high vise attached to his bench, and the high vise really helps get work up a little higher when you're doing some of these hand tool works. And he's got a whole project here that uses the bench crafted hardware to create a really nice, perfect high vise. And maybe, I know, Caleb, you've created a couple different ways before, but maybe a quick chat about what drove this project and why you were brought into bring it into Origin land.
Yeah, I was at, there's another chair maker that I've been a longtime friend with, Greg Pennington. He's a Windsor chair maker. And I was at his shop and he had a high vise. And I had used pattern maker vices, which I like, but these are so solid and it's got just enough kind of movement in the face front jaw that it can kind of pivot to tapered parts. And it just held them so securely. So after I left his shop, I said, well, I've got to have one of those. And actually looked at trying to make my own hardware here. You know, I'm a McMaster car fan, and realized, wow, I mean, the materials are almost as much as just buying this. So I bought that, and it just seemed immediately obvious that to cut all these components, line up everything accurately, I might as well just do it with Origin. So yeah, made the files, cut the parts. There were a few, you know, spots that I had to drill a little deeper than Origin would go, but I could just carry it over to my drill press and then just, you know, complete the operation through. But otherwise, pretty much made with Origin completely. And yeah, it just seemed like a nice thing that I should share. Why not? I went to the work to create the files, throw them up there.
Yeah, it's great. I think the hardware is a couple $100, and then the plans you can just download, mill up your material to thickness, and a couple hours later you got yourself a nice high vise.
That's perfect timing for our mid-show break. We got one more ShaperHub project that we want to show you. It's that CJ3 chair, but we're going to leave that as a little bit of a teaser for now. We've got a couple of announcements. You know, we always like to talk about new products during these shows. So we've got a couple things that we just launched recently, and we'd love to show them off. It's these new router bits. Now, what do we have here, Sean?
So we have 3 new bits. They all are 8mm shank. So they're much beefier than the 1/4-inch shanks, and that gives us a lot of stability in the cuts. And the one you're seeing right now is a 8mm roughing bit. And so this bit actually rips through wood. I mean, it's like if you're trying to remove a lot of material quickly, this bit is really good for that. Now, depending on what you're doing with the final piece, you may actually have to come back with a different bit. In some cases, you may be template routing anyways, and you could finish it up on a template routing. But that bit is a really big one for removing material quickly, and it rips.
I would say don't try this at home without a little bit of practice first, but I rounded a corner on a solid oak tabletop with this at the full 32mm cutting depth.
Yeah,
so,
and I was cutting some pretty deep cuts yesterday in white oak. So, yeah, it's quite the bit.
It really rips. And kind of in a similar vein, not roughing, but on that real stable 8mm shank, we have longer 6mm router bits.
Yes.
And longer 4mm router bits.
Yeah, so sometimes if you're doing small holes or you need really small areas that you really can't get the bigger bits in, these can be long reach and get into those areas. And then the 6mm bit has actually, the shank extends past the cutting flutes a bit, so you can get pretty deep with that, and you're not blocked by the 8mm shank at the back. So, yeah, some new bits that just hit the store, and we will be maybe giving a couple of those away at the end if you stick around.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So we have a poll question that pops up in the middle of every show. Let's actually do that now, because we know for our mobile viewers it kind of blocks the screen a little bit. So let's pull up that poll question now. And if you answer that poll question, which is which masterclass should we make next, you know, help us put out the content that you want to see, we're giving away to 2 winners at the end of the show, one of these 8mm roughing bits and a 5mm O-flute router bit that I love for cutting templates out that we're going to use in our template making demo later in the show. So make sure you answer that poll question. We'll give everybody just a minute to do that. And then, you know, the other thing that we love to do in these kind of mid-show breaks is a shop tour. We've had a lot of really good shop tour submissions. Make sure to send those to us at sessions@shapertools.com. Ideally 2 to 4 minutes. Narrate them if you'd like. We love hearing about your shop as well as just seeing it. And, you know, sessions@shapertools.com. Speaking of giveaways, if you want the best chance of winning something, send us a shop tour, because for every shop tour we play on Sessions, we've been sending someone a little bit of swag. Usually it's been our brass barbells. Yeah. We're going to mix that up soon. But we'll send you some swag if we play your shop tour on our show. And you'll have a better chance of winning than if you enter this random giveaway, I would say. So if you want that good chance, send us a shop tour. But since we have Caleb here today, we don't get chances like this very often for such a, incredible shop, to see such an incredible shop. So let's pull that poll question down, and we'll switch it back to Caleb to get that shop tour.
Okay, guys, let's see if I can do this and keep you in frame. So I'll start back here. Maybe I try to give you a full view of the shop. So I got a roll-up door on one end, and this wall faces out into some wood, so I get some nice light in. But yeah, sharpening station over here, usually kind of a little bit of a wreck. my tall tool chest. Here's one of my lathes, my favorite drill press here. How are you guys seeing everything?
Yeah, it's great.
I got the
This
front-facing
looks great.
camera. Yeah, it's good. Okay, so yeah, here's the other end of it. Stairs up into the house. A little bit of my area where I keep my fridge and stuff. Here's some more lathes, some more of my benches. So it's a little bit set up so when I have students here, they all kind of have a nice, comfortable space to work in. Everybody has a bench, but it also works with my flow for the most part. Here's just a little personal project I'm working on. Got to get a new bathroom vanity in there. Okay, slot mortiser. There's another slot mortiser. Here's my router table, and this is a 5-function machine. It's got the slider on it. Got the joiner, planer tables over there and so forth. Yeah, here's a nice large duplicating lathe. Another drill press that I need to sell. Here's my bandsaw, 18-inch Laguna. A little bit of wood storage there, but most of my wood storage is here in the back. There's a drum sander, one of two that I have in the shop. Hopefully it's not too dark back here.
Oh, that's great.
Can you guys see this?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So here's a lot of parts for some chairs. Some of them have already been produced. It's usually I have a few pieces left over. Might go into the next production. Yeah. Hey, this is about as interesting as a storage room can be, I guess. But here's where most of my wood usually gets stored, and processed through a little bit. That back there is mostly furniture storage anymore, but that I used to actually kiln dry my own wood, so that's what that originally was built for. So yeah, that's my shop. There's my dust collection there in the corner. I can see that. That is actually a steam chamber that I roll out, and it's got a couple of wallpaper steamers in there. So when I got to steam bend some things, you might be wondering some of these are with like the ratcheting gears on it. Those are for steam bending, so I'll use some of those ratchet straps and so forth to bend components around. So yeah, that's basically the shop.
Awesome.
I've got in this area is about 1,000 square feet, something like that, about 900, and then on the other side of the walls, probably about 400 or 500.
So you mentioned you do classes in there. I know you do classes in a couple of different formats. Since this is kind of the announcements section, I think this would be a great time to plug those too. Want to give you a chance to hype up your work.
Yeah. So I occasionally teach some classes in the shop. Generally, the last few years have been in the fall. So if I announce it, maybe I get 3 classes or so in, usually about 3 to 4 students. So you can keep an eye out for those if you're curious about any of those coming up. Of course, follow me on Instagram, subscribe to my newsletter on my website. This dry bar cube over here that I got, actually going to do a class with the Wood Whisperer. So that should be coming up probably later on this year. Sometimes we're going to do some box joints on it. So that works actually really well with the Origin, if somebody wanted to try to make it with Origin. I also got my first online class with the Wood Whisperer on this bench. Here, I'll kind of show that one real quick. It's Danish cord. So if you're curious to learn how to do Danish cord, that's a nice little intro project, about a 2-day build. So yeah, do some online classes occasionally, like teaching people how to make chairs or just simple items that don't take you, a month of Sundays to produce, right? Because I know most people are hobbyists. So, what could you do over a couple of weekends, but really get something out of it that you could use? Maybe it's a bench by the doorway, or it's a cool little item for the den, or something like that.
Very cool. And speaking of classes, I just realized we forgot to play that teaser video for the Masterclass.
Well, let's play it.
Let's play it, because that's absolutely beautiful, and it talks about all those things that we were outlining earlier.
My history in kind of bringing together my hobby work, my tool making and my chair making to where I am today, I'd probably say it was really shaped by a path of exploration. My name is Caleb James. I'm a chair maker. So in this class, I look forward to showing you shaping components by hand, organic forms, how I like to use origin and template making, to talk a little bit about maybe how you can approach chair design, and that's how to sharpen a card scraper efficiently and effectively. If you want some advice to get into chair making, I would probably recommend the path I took. Yeah, just exploring so many iterations. There's just so much to learn in that body of work. Take a lot of time and examine and look at chairs. Kind of absorb what's out there. Fill your mind with the potential and the broad range of examples. We can't continue to design new things if we don't take moments to play, but we can't continue to stay in this craftsman design world if we don't work. My approach and kind of philosophy to woodworking, if you're gonna make it your job, do it in a way that suits your lifestyle and that you can enjoy. Success is awesome, but don't do it at the sacrifice of what craft can give you in your life.
You can get the feel for just how absolutely incredible these videos are going to be.
Yeah, and if you haven't actually taken the time to go check out the Masterclass page, there's a sign-up link at the bottom. Put your email in and your name and hit submit, and all of them will be delivered to your inbox, and then future ones as well, so you'll always have access to them.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of, we've got the CJ3 Stacking Chair as well, which kind of ties in to all of this chair design. We have the chair. Let's bring that chair back up here,
Okay.
actually. And Caleb, I'd love to hear your perspective on just kind of where this chair came from and where it fits into that chair design philosophy.
Yeah, this chair stood out to me, when we were talking about putting together a chair project, because basically all the joinery on it is 90 degrees. And usually what I think intimidates people is, for making a chair, is all the compound joinery and so forth. And so I had made some stacking chairs for a client early on in my work. And they're a little bit intriguing, I think they're very practical, especially if you kind of have a small space. You can have, maybe you have 4 chairs out, but maybe you have an extension table. You want to be able to bring 4 more chairs out. Well, you can just tuck them away in the closet. Of course, they're made out of solid wood, so they're very durable. So it just seemed like a smart project to me. Also, what's really kind of great about it is it creates kind of like the bare bones structure of a chair, kind of the skeleton of what makes a good chair, so the angles for what makes a good chair are easily, gotten from this. So I think it's a good point to start to teach people what makes a good chair without all the little frills maybe kind of distracting you or taking your focus away from really what the fundamentals are. So to me, for all those reasons, it seemed to make sense. Also, you can make it out of all the same thickness material. So let's say you don't even have a joiner or a planer, but you can go buy four-sided surface material. You could go to the shop and buy all those boards that are the same thickness, and then they're going to match, and then just cut them all out of the same wood. So I felt like it kind of made it a little bit more accessible to people, even if you didn't have a big shop.
Mm-hmm. That's a really thoughtful detail. And you were mentioned using this as a template for other chairs building off of this theme. So I think this would be a good time to pull up that project on ShaperHub and show some of the information that's included in this.
Yeah. All right. So this is the ShaperHub project, and you can just type in CJ3 Stacking Chair, and it'll show up in the search. And there's pictures of the different parts of the process, as well as all the files that come along with it. So there's all sorts of files for the templates, for the mortises, for fixtures that go into workstation. There's a ton of different files here, and there's a PDF to help guide you through it, as well as some 3D models,
which I think is really slick. So that's a great way to take this chair and, kind of like draw on top of it in the 3D space, or you could even draw on top of it in the 2D space, and riff on it that way.
Yeah, and if you do decide to modify it a bit, there's a Fusion plugin that allows you to export the files directly to Origin as well to get your SVG files from those faces. So you can make your modifications and quickly export them out and make your modified chair.
Mm-hmm. So we were talking about, Caleb, you developed these chairs, and the first time you did something like this, it was kind of a batch project. I think that's kind of a good segue into templating. So we can see this template for a back chair leg for this stacking chair. This is one of the focus points of the masterclass, but I'd love to hear a little bit about your workflow with templating with Origin and using it in your chair making practice.
Yeah, so for any woodworking that includes curves or angles and things like that, usually we're looking to make a template. So for me, prior to Origin, I think I kind of touched on this. I was drawing stuff up in Adobe Illustrator, and then I would print that out, and I would take that large formatted printed paper, and I would glue it down to MDF. I cut that out on the bandsaw, and then I would shape up as close as I could to the line, and then start seeing if it actually was accurate to what I was going for. And God forbid that I wanted to change something midway, I would have to do that all again. So for me, when I discovered that you could do this with Origin, now it was just as simple as completing the design. Whether it was in Adobe, now I use Fusion 360, exporting that to Origin, just dropping it into my account on the website, and then I could walk right down to the shop and go and cut it out. Usually you're done in about 20 minutes or less. So that's my process there now. And if I wanted to change that template at all, even just tweak something a little bit, maybe I want to just go outside of the line a little bit or change a dimension on something here or there. It's super simple. I just change it on the computer, send it to Origin again, 20 minutes later, I cut it out. And I know it's going to be accurate. Everything is going to be exactly where I want it to be. I can route directly to that template. And, I know I'm not going to spend 2 or 3 hours trying to perfect a template by hand, which is arduous.
Yeah, speaking of spending time, we've got a demo set up here. I think it's a great time to just show how quick it can be to cut out some templates with Origin. So I have all 3 templates here set up for this project. I have the back leg, I have the front leg, and a profile for this for the back of this chair here, the backrest. And I've got it set up with AutoPass. I'm ready to rip. I've already gridded it and imported my design. So I think I'm just going to go to town on these. And Sean, if you want to narrate while I'm doing it, we'll cut out some templates. All right, here we go. So let's switch over to the Origin cam here. I'll show you all what's going on. If I zoom out here, you can see that this is one pretty large file with 3 parts on it. And each of those is the profile of one of 3 parts from this chair. We've got the front leg, which is the shorter one, the back leg, which is the longer one, and the back rest, which for this chair is made out of 5 sections that you actually glue together, so that you can make it out of all that same thickness material, which I think is really clever. So we're going to go in here. This path's already set up. I've got AutoPass configured with I think it's a 0.04 or 0.05 inch offset. I have my 5mm O-flute router bit, which I really love for doing these MDF or plywood template cuts. And we're going to do this in 2 passes. 1 pass down to depth, roughing, and then a small finishing pass just to clean it up. All right, let's let it go.
Okay, so as you can see, Russ just moving this around, just slowly going around with that 5mm bit. You need a little bit of audio issues, sorry. Yeah, so he's just slowly going around with that 5mm bit. Like he said, he's going to full depth right now. So that 5mm bit can go much deeper than the other bits. And with that MDF, you're just Make sure you're not going too slow because, the MDF will create a lot of dust there, and the chips will be really small. So you do have to move at a decent speed, but you'll just need to kind of do some test cuts and see how those chips are coming off. But that's almost one side around. And then he's going to transition to that finish pass. And one of the nice things about AutoPass is when you're cutting with AutoPass, you don't really have to worry too much about what you're doing. You just focus on the cut, getting a good outcome. Here you can kind of see Russ is slowing down a little bit. You can hear the sounds changing because he's now in that finish pass, just kind of removing a small part. And just keep your slow and steady and try to move origin as smoothly as you can. And yeah, what Caleb's talking about when you're, if you're modifying these files and you're trying to find the right look or the right angle of something, you can crank one of these templates out quite quick. And if you don't like it, you take another one, cut another one. It's a couple minutes later, and you're kind of iterating through the process of finding the design you like. Okay, and here we're coming up on that finish, and you'll see AutoPass will automatically retract for you as you get to that final part. And you'll see that little dot show up on screen, and there we go. Okay, so there's 2 down. I think this will be the last one right here. Yeah, so if you're not familiar with AutoPass, that was released in the last software update, Jenner. AutoPass is a paid extension. You buy it once, and it lives on your tool for the rest of time. It's $199, and it really just speeds up your efficiency and just really allows you to get to work. I mean, I think there's been a lot of people really enjoying the process, and we're really excited to have it on tool and allow people to purchase it. It's not required to purchase, so if you're happy with how your experience is on Origin, you're not required. But if you want to take it to the next level, there's that optional choice you can make and bring it into your workflow. Sounds like we're hitting the finishing pass here. You can kind of hear how the noise has changed. And there we go. Maybe we'll check the top cam here. All right. And within a couple minutes, we have a couple templates. We can start testing our pieces.
Yeah, let's pop these out.
And Caleb, I think, talking with you in the past about how you used to do your templates, this is quite the improvement.
Yeah, it was the big selling feature for me. I think I had I knew Phil had an Origin, and so I hit him up and said, "Hey, Phil, I want to use these to make my templates. Is it actually an accurate tool?" And Phil was like, "Yeah, it is. It really is." So, even so, when I got it and I cut out some templates, it was really the perfect solution for me, because there's no way I was going to buy even a hobby grade CNC just to cut out templates. It started there, and then you realize, oh, I can use it to cut out joinery, and I can use it for this and that. So it starts kind of finding different places in your shop workflow.
Yeah, totally.
And, one of the questions that we've actually gotten a lot on some of the media that we've posted about this project is, why even use templates? Shaper Origin is like a template router in itself, but there's a balance there to be had with production versus quality versus speed. So, Caleb, I'm curious, when do you cut out a part just by Origin with itself, and when do you decide to make that switch to something like a template?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. If I'm prototyping something, I got a chair over here that's still the prototype version of it, but I cut out all the parts with Origin. Now, I didn't have AutoPass at the time, so it was a lot slower, because you're having to make the adjustment for every depth of cut and so forth. But if I'm prototyping, even without AutoPass, I'm going to use Origin. But when I'm going to go into production, I have a 5 horsepower shaper over there. The Origin, its horsepower just can't compete with that. So for production, I want to be able to slap my part on and just hog that material off quickly. So that's really kind of the determining factor for me. Am I prototyping? Use Origin. Am I going to make 50 of them? Make a template and go put it on my big horsepower shaper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 50 is a lot. So now that I got these peeled up, let's switch over to this bench cam just so we can see the edge quality on that. I would just call that a good straight template.
Yeah, that one looks amazing. I think this is one of the things that when you start really pushing Origin to the limits, you really need to find the bit that works with the material you're working and how you're working with it. And this 5mm bit is incredible for this type of work, especially very fast. And yeah, you kind of get it out of you kind of pretty close to putting it right on your material afterwards. There might be a little sanding needed on the templates, but it's very minimal normally. So, yeah.
We'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
See you guys.